You don't actually want what you think you want. You want the feeling you imagine it will bring. But that feeling always slips through your fingers. And so you chase again, and again, and again. You tell yourself that once you get the job, the partner, the house, the status, then you'll finally be okay. But deep down, you already suspect the truth. It will never be enough. Because the problem isn't what you don't have. It's what you believe having it will solve. Alan Watts once said, "You are under the impression that there is something wrong with you. And it is just that impression that is the problem." We live our lives under the spell of dissatisfaction, haunted by the sense that something's missing. But what if the thing missing is the very idea that something is missing? Let's walk through this, because the cage you're in was built with your own hands, and the key was never hidden. You've just been too busy looking elsewhere to see it. From the moment we wake up, we're pulled into 1,000 directions. Deadlines, notifications, responsibilities. It's like we're running on a treadmill we never agreed to step on. And even when we reach the next milestone, the raise, the vacation, the new relationship, that faint whisper returns. Is this it? We've been conditioned to believe that life is a series of upgrades, a game where the goal is to collect as many achievements as possible before we die. But Alan Watts challenged that illusion. He compared life not to a journey toward a destination, but to a dance. You don't dance to get to the end of the song. You dance because the music is playing. You enjoy the movement for what it is, not for where it's taking you. So why do we treat life like a checklist? Why do we believe that fulfillment is something we'll find just a little further down the road? Because we've confused becoming with being. We're addicted to progress, to constant becoming, to fixing, improving, transforming. And that addiction is cleverly disguised as ambition. But if you're always trying to become something more, you're silently declaring that what you are now isn't enough. And that quiet belief, it follows you like a shadow, no matter how much light you chase. Do you remember the last time you truly felt peace? Not distracted, not entertained, not productive, but at peace. Most people don't, because peace isn't profitable. The world sells you solutions to problems you didn't even know you had, convincing you that dissatisfaction is normal. And in a way, it is, because we've made it so. Alan Watts once observed that modern society is like a man who constantly picks himself up by his own bootstraps. We create stress, then sell ourselves relief. We build walls, then beg to be free. We lose ourselves, then pay to find meaning. But what if the answer isn't more? What if the answer is less? You see, there's a quiet liberation in realizing that you don't need to chase every desire that arises. That maybe your restlessness isn't a sign that something's wrong, but a call to return to what you already are. Watts taught that the meaning of life is just to be alive, to notice the way the wind touches your skin, the way your breath rises and falls, the absurdity and beauty of the entire human experience. And yet, we're rarely present enough to feel it, because we're caught in a loop, remembering the past, anticipating the future, never fully here. But here is the only place life ever actually happens. Imagine for a moment, what if there was nowhere to get to? Nothing to become? What if you stopped chasing and started listening? Not to the world, not to others, but to yourself. Would you finally hear the silence behind the noise? Would you recognize that the peace you've been searching for was never out there? This isn't about giving up. It's about waking up. Waking up from the dream that life begins later. After the promotion, after the healing, after the success. Because if you're not careful, you'll spend your entire life preparing to live, only to discover, in the final breath, that life was never something to earn. It was something to notice. Alan Watts often warned against living in the future that never arrives. He said, "The future is a concept. It doesn't exist. There is no such thing as tomorrow. There never will be, because time is always now. Let that sink in. The next moment is always imaginary. The only real thing is this breath, this feeling, this presence. And when you fully enter that presence, dissatisfaction begins to fade. Not because life is suddenly perfect, but because you've stopped demanding that it be. So how do you begin? How do you untangle years of conditioning that told you to strive, to fix, to become? You start by watching. Watch how your mind grasps at the next thing. Watch how silence feels uncomfortable. Watch how quickly you label boredom, anxiety, stillness as something to escape. Then ask yourself, what if I didn't run? What if I let this moment be enough? It won't feel natural, not at first, because stillness threatens the ego. The ego wants movement, progress, achievement. But the soul just wants to be. Alan Watts compared the ego to a monkey jumping from branch to branch, never still, never satisfied. But you are not the monkey. You are the sky through which the monkey moves. You are the awareness beneath the thoughts. And when you remember that, you remember peace. There's something deeply rebellious about choosing presence in a world that profits from your absence. To unplug from the race, to sit in the silence, to savor the moment without trying to capture it or share it or make it productive. But in that rebellion is your freedom. Because when you stop needing life to go your way, you begin to see how beautiful it already is. And no, this doesn't mean you abandon goals or dreams. It means you stop making your worth dependent on them. You stop postponing your joy. You stop outsourcing your sense of enoughness. Watts believed that the purpose of life wasn't to arrive somewhere. It was to play, like music, like laughter, like love. And when you live this way, you realize satisfaction was never a destination. It was a state of being. So the next time that quiet voice whispers, "This isn't enough," ask yourself, who told me I needed more? What if I don't? And in that moment, let yourself breathe. Let yourself notice. Let yourself be. Because the truth about why you're always unsatisfied is that you've forgotten how to be fully here, now alive. Enough. And now that you know, you can return, not to a better version of yourself, but to the one that was never lost, only distracted. If this message stirred something in you, if it helped you pause, reflect, or feel just a little more alive, leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. You never know who might need to hear this today. And maybe, just maybe, they'll remember too.